Hello, Sally. Nice to see you, Sally. Those words, spoken coldly and almost robotically, were one of the moments that stayed with Sally Struthers for decades. To millions of viewers, Sally and Rob Reiner, playing Gloria and Michael Stivic on All in the Family, were the definition of a perfect couple. They argued, laughed, loved, and reconciled each week on screen, reflecting the tensions and changes of American life in the 1970s. Fans wrote thousands of letters praising their chemistry, their charm, and the authenticity of their performances. Many believed that the connection between Gloria and Michael must have been real because it felt so real. But the truth behind the cameras was different. Rob Reiner, admired as a talented actor and later a brilliant director, was not the warm, gentle man that the world imagined. While he appeared confident and sometimes charming on set, he could also be distant, cold, and unyielding when it came to personal relationships. Sally often found herself navigating the fine line between professional respect and her growing personal feelings for him, a line that Rob never crossed. From the very first day, on the All in the Family set in 1971, there was a spark of connection, but it was tempered by boundaries that Rob maintained strictly. Sally, full of enthusiasm and energy, entered the world of television with a desire to perform, to be recognized, and to create something meaningful. She quickly realized that Rob was not only her co-star, but also a man of strong principles and remarkable talent. His understanding of the craft was deep, and he was always looking for ways to improve every scene, every line, and every moment. He adjusted scripts to match audience reactions, coached other actors gently, and worked tirelessly to make the show successful. In the early days, this professionalism and creative dedication impressed Sally, and she found herself drawn, not only to his intelligence, but also to his energy and presence on set. As weeks and months went by, they began to share small moments of laughter and understanding. After takes, they would quietly joke, sometimes giggle over inside observations about the scripts, or share quick remarks that only they could understand. It was in those small moments that Sally felt a connection that went beyond professional respect. Yet, every time she felt her emotions stir, Rob maintained a clear line. He respected her as a co-star and a professional, never inviting personal closeness that could be misunderstood. Sally experienced a mixture of admiration and longing. She admired his genius, his calm leadership, and his ability to guide a room full of actors while remaining composed. At the same time, she quietly wished for more, though she knew it could never be. She often reflected on how the public assumed their on-screen chemistry reflected their real-life relationship, not knowing about the careful boundaries, the unspoken emotions, and the professional distance that Rob always maintained. Even when rehearsing emotionally intense scenes, when arguments between Michael and Gloria seemed heated and passionate, it was all performance. The intensity came from their acting ability and understanding of the script, not real-life feelings. Sally sometimes wondered if Rob sensed her emotions, if he noticed the subtle glances or quiet admiration she held for him. But he never acted upon it. Their bond was professional, with hints of mutual respect, but personal intimacy was limited to fleeting, unspoken moments. Over 8 seasons, they became a television phenomenon. All in the Family did not just entertain, it reflected societal issues, generational conflict, and changing American ideals. Audiences cheered for the couple, mourned their conflicts, and celebrated their reconciliations. People believed in Michael and Gloria as a couple, and many fans even sent letters congratulating them as if they were a real-life couple. Sally sometimes smiled at these letters, but felt a quiet sadness that the reality was so different. Behind the laughter and applause, there were boundaries she could not cross, and feelings she could not express. She admired Rob as a talented actor, a future director, and a colleague, but the heart she carried for him remained private, unspoken, and quietly longing. This first paragraph shows that while their on-screen relationship seemed perfect, the real story was filled with subtle tension, admiration, unspoken feelings, and professional restraint. Their collaboration was exceptional, and it produced unforgettable television. But the human story behind the cameras was far more complex than anyone could imagine. Sally Struthers' admiration for Rob Reiner grew as the show continued, but so did the difficulty of managing her feelings. She had never experienced such a mix of professional respect and personal affection for anyone before. Every line they read, every argument they performed for the live audience, every shared joke or glance became part of a delicate dance where emotions had to be hidden yet expressed convincingly on screen. Rob, fully aware of his own boundaries, remained professional at all times. He guided the actors, improved scripts, and handled live performances with precision, but never crossed into the personal sphere. Sally often reflected on how his attention to detail made the show legendary. He would pause during readings, suggesting that a particular line be shortened or that a moment be extended to let the audience's laughter land. His understanding of comedy and timing was far beyond that of his peers. This talent earned him respect on set, and later, his reputation as a brilliant director only grew. Sally, meanwhile, balanced admiration with heartbreak. She wanted to express her feelings, but every moment on set reminded her that personal desires had to be secondary to professionalism. The tension between what she felt and what was appropriate created an inner conflict that stayed with her for decades. In one memorable incident, she tried to invite Rob for a quiet walk away from the crew, hoping to share a moment just between the two of them. She whispered her invitation with hope and vulnerability. Rob, however, responded gently yet firmly, reminding her of their responsibilities, his marriage, and the need for professional boundaries. He did not raise his voice or scold her. He simply declined, stating with calm conviction that their roles as colleagues and co-stars required respect and dignity. Sally was heartbroken, yet she understood the principle behind his words. She swallowed her disappointment and maintained a smile, hiding her emotions as she interacted with the cast and crew. That unspoken rejection became one of the moments she carried silently for decades. Despite the personal challenges, Sally and Rob continued to work together with dedication, delivering performances that would be remembered for generations. They grew as actors, learning to read each other's cues, developing timing, and mastering the nuances of their characters. Michael and Gloria evolved alongside the show, embodying societal changes, family dynamics, and the evolving conversations of American households. Sally received recognition for her talent, including Emmy Awards for her portrayal of Gloria. Rob's career trajectory continued to rise as well, eventually transitioning into directing, where his leadership, creativity, and vision became widely celebrated. Yet beyond the accolades and public admiration, there remained a deeply personal story, one that was rarely told. The complexity of their relationship, admiration, unspoken affection, professional respect, and personal restraint, was a secret kept for decades. It was only in recent years, after Rob Reiner's death, that Sally finally shared her reflections publicly. The loss of Rob and his wife Michelle seemed to unlock the silence, allowing Sally to speak of emotions, memories, and truths she had long held close. She spoke of the intense connection they had shared on set, the humor, the arguments, and the careful navigation of personal and professional boundaries. She spoke of longing, heartbreak, admiration, and respect, providing the world with a rare glimpse into the human complexity behind beloved television icons. Sally's words reminded audiences that the magic of television comes not just from talent, but also from the unspoken human experiences, the emotions restrained, and the boundaries maintained for decades. She reflected on how Rob's brilliance, integrity, and professionalism shaped both the show and her own growth as an actor, leaving an indelible mark on her life. Fans who had admired Michael and Gloria as a couple now saw the depth of reality behind the scenes, a story filled with respect, restraint, and the bittersweet emotions of unspoken love. The truth she shared was not scandalous or salacious, but profoundly human. It revealed the invisible struggles that often accompany artistic collaboration, the sacrifices made to maintain professionalism, and the quiet heartbreak that can linger behind the glamour of Hollywood. Sally's reflections served as both a tribute to Rob's talent and an honest account of the personal emotions that can accompany creative work in the entertainment industry. They reminded the world that behind every iconic performance are real people, navigating real emotions, sometimes struggling to reconcile admiration with boundaries, desire with propriety, and human longing with professional respect. In sharing her story, Sally not only honored her own experiences, but also offered insight into the invisible emotional labor that shapes art, performance, and the relationships behind the camera. The story of Sally Struthers and Rob Reiner is a story of dedication, professionalism, talent, and complex emotions, all woven into the creation of one of television's most enduring legacies. After decades of silence, Sally Struthers' confession following Rob Reiner's death allowed the public to finally understand the true nature of their off-screen relationship. For more than 40 years, she had carried memories, admiration, and a quiet longing that could never be expressed. She described how their collaboration on All in the Family was both inspiring and challenging, how every scene was a balance between professional performance and personal restraint. She spoke of the creative genius of Rob, who not only shaped the show, but also nurtured the actors around him, creating an environment where art thrived despite personal complexities. She reflected on moments of laughter, shared understanding, and quiet connection, moments that were private yet profoundly meaningful. The bond they had formed, though never romantic in real life, was built on mutual respect, shared ambition, and the deep understanding that comes from working closely over years. Fans who grew up watching Michael and Gloria could now appreciate the layers behind the performances, understanding that the on-screen magic was a product of not just talent, but also carefully maintained boundaries, personal discipline, and emotional depth. Sally revealed how her admiration for Rob never faded, even as she came to accept the impossibility of a personal relationship. She spoke of heartbreak, unspoken desire, and the ways in which she navigated her feelings while maintaining professionalism. In recounting these experiences, She highlighted the humanity behind the public image of actors who seem larger than life. The story of Michael and Gloria, now fully intertwined with the story of Sally and Rob off-screen, illustrated that even the most beloved television icons are human beings with emotions, struggles, and boundaries. Sally's reflections were not meant to tarnish reputations or create scandal, but to share an honest account of emotions that had been silenced for decades. She emphasized that admiration, infatuation, and professional respect can coexist without crossing ethical lines, that love can be complex and unspoken, and that human experiences are rarely as simple as they appear on the surface. Her words provided closure, not only for herself, but for viewers who had long wondered about the nature of their on-screen chemistry. By speaking openly, she honored both her own experiences and Rob's legacy, highlighting his talent, professionalism, and the integrity with which he approached his career and relationships. She reminded the public that behind every successful artistic endeavor lies hard work, dedication, emotional intelligence, and often, personal sacrifice. The story of Sally Struthers and Rob Reiner is ultimately a story of human complexity, admiration and longing, professionalism and restraint, success and unspoken emotion. It demonstrates how creative collaboration can be both rewarding and emotionally challenging, how respect and boundaries can define relationships, and how decades of unspoken feelings can eventually find their voice. Through her confession, Sally allowed audiences to see beyond the glitz of Hollywood, beyond the laughter of sitcoms, and into the private experiences of actors who gave their hearts to their craft while maintaining dignity. She showed that the magic of television is not just in what viewers see, but in the labor, emotion, and personal experience behind every performance. This story stands as a reminder that even in Hollywood, with all its fame and glamour, human emotions remain at the core of every creative endeavor. Love, admiration, heartbreak, and respect all coexist in the complicated spaces between on-screen fantasy and off-screen reality. Sally's courage in sharing her story allows the world to appreciate not only the brilliance of Rob Reiner and the legacy of All in the Family, but also the human stories that made those performances possible. I.P. is a story of artistry, humanity, and emotion. A story that will resonate with fans, actors, and anyone who has ever experienced admiration, longing, or unspoken feelings. Ultimately, it is a reminder that the real stories behind beloved shows and icons are often more intricate, emotional, and meaningful than we could ever imagine, and that the courage to share those stories, even decades later, is a testament to the enduring power of honesty, reflection, and human connection. Sally Struthers, known to millions as the vibrant and outspoken Gloria Stivic on All in the Family, had a side of her life that very few knew about. Off-camera, her emotions, thoughts, and personal experiences often remained hidden behind her cheerful demeanor, laughter, and professional composure. One of the most significant moments of her personal life involved her relationship with her co-star, Rob Reiner. Rob, who played her on-screen husband Michael Stivic, was more than just a colleague to her. While millions of viewers saw only the dynamic between Gloria and Michael, Sally's real-life feelings were far more complex. She found herself admiring Rob not just as an actor, but as a person. It was the first time she had ever felt this way about someone. The first time she truly allowed herself to care deeply for a man who existed in both her professional and personal world. What made this situation more complicated was that her affection for Rob had nothing to do with the characters they portrayed. It was not Gloria loving Michael that mattered here. This was Sally's own admiration for Rob, for the person he was, his humor, his intelligence, and his presence on and off the set. And yet, despite the depth of her feelings, Sally's emotions were never reciprocated in the way she had hoped. The first confession she made to Rob was a moment that changed everything, a moment she would remember for the rest of her life. When she spoke to him honestly about her feelings, expecting at least a small acknowledgement or understanding, Rob turned away, seemingly unaware or unwilling to meet her emotionally vulnerable state. The silence that followed that moment was deafening for her. She felt paralyzed, unable to speak, unable to cry, and unable to move beyond the intense sadness that had settled in her chest. Every smile he shared with others, every conversation he had with other cast members, reminded her of the rejection. She had to act professionally on set, but each scene became heavy with unspoken tension, her emotions bleeding subtly into her performance. In certain scenes, particularly moments when Gloria confronted Michael, Sally tried to channel her personal pain into her acting. She imagined the words she wished she could say to Rob, the emotions she wanted to express, and in doing so, brought a new depth to her character. But the acknowledgement she hoped for from Rob never came. Off camera, he maintained a polite but distant demeanor, always courteous, yet never letting his personal warmth cross the boundary that Sally had silently wished existed. One memory that stayed with her vividly occurred during a particular afternoon on the CBS set. Rob had pulled her aside and in a quiet corner away from the crew and the lights, shared instructions she had never expected. Penny Marshall, his wife at the time, would attend that night's recording. Sally, surprised, asked why he needed to inform her, since Penny regularly came to the set. Rob's reply was firm yet calm. He asked Sally not to approach Penny, not to smile, not to engage in any conversation. He explained that Penny suspected there might be something between them, and he did not want to create misunderstandings or jeopardize his marriage. The words left Sally stunned. She had never considered a romantic relationship with Rob. To her, he had always been a friend, a colleague, and a kind of brotherly figure. He was someone she trusted and enjoyed working with, someone whose humor and professionalism she respected deeply. She forced a polite smile and assured him that there was nothing inappropriate between them, nothing beyond friendship and work. Rob, however, seemed burdened by the responsibility of clarifying boundaries. He nodded, his eyes heavy with concern, explaining that he loved Penny and needed to protect their relationship. He placed his hand lightly on her shoulder in a gesture of silent apology before walking away. Sally left the encounter with a sense of exclusion, feeling pushed out of a circle she had once believed she belonged to. That evening, when Penny arrived on set, Sally carefully followed Rob's instructions. She maintained distance, offering only a nod when necessary, and no smiles or conversation. Penny, understandably cautious and perhaps suspicious, observed Sally closely, leaving Sally with feelings of hurt and confusion. That single moment became a lasting memory, a deep emotional scar that persisted for years. Even after Rob and Penny divorced in 1981, Sally could not shake the memory. The affection she had longed for remained unfulfilled, and the tension of unreciprocated feelings lingered quietly, influencing her performance, her interactions, and her private reflections. Every laugh on set, every moment of camaraderie among the cast, carried a bittersweet undertone for Sally. Rob's eventual rise to fame as a director, with acclaimed works like Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, and when Harry met Sally, and that added another layer of complexity to her emotions. To the public, he was charming, talented, and respected. To Sally, his success was a reminder of the distance and the affection that had never been returned. Their phone calls, which had once been brief but meaningful, became rarer over time, until they stopped entirely. Sally felt a persistent emptiness, a quiet void left by the absence of a once close friendship. She questioned herself endlessly, wondering why the relationship had drifted, why the affection and connection they once shared had dissolved. The memories of backstage moments, small jokes, and shared laughter remained vivid, yet the ability to reconnect or clarify feelings seemed forever lost. Sally's story is not just one of unreciprocated feelings, but also of the challenges of maintaining personal connections in the high-pressure world of Hollywood. It illustrates the delicate balance between professional respect, personal boundaries, and human emotions. Despite the heartbreak, Sally continued to pursue her career with dedication, appearing in stage productions, television series, and other projects that allowed her to connect with audiences of all ages. Her resilience and passion for acting became central to her identity, even as the memories of Rob and the silent pain of unreciprocated affection lingered quietly in her heart. Years passed, and Sally's career continued to flourish. She took on new roles, explored opportunities in theater, and worked with actors from multiple generations. Yet, even as her professional life progressed, the memories of Rob remained with her. Each public event, each award ceremony, and each television reunion had the potential to bring him back into her awareness, a reminder of the bond they once shared, and the emotional distance that later defined their relationship. Sally often reflected on why the connection they had built over 8 years on All in the Family had faded. She considered that Rob's distance might have been necessary, not born of indifference, but of care for his personal life. He had set boundaries to protect his marriage, and perhaps, as Sally eventually rationalized, those boundaries had unintentionally created pain. In interviews years later, she shared glimpses of her feelings, revealing that while she understood the reasons for Rob's distance, the hurt remained. Hollywood is a complex world where friendships, professional partnerships, and personal lives often collide. Sally experienced firsthand how a seemingly small misunderstanding or cautious boundary can ripple through years of collaboration and affection. Despite the challenges, she maintained her energy and enthusiasm for life. She exercised regularly, stayed mentally active, and embraced new acting opportunities. Shows like Netflix's A Man on the Inside and numerous stage performances kept her engaged, allowing her to connect with both older audiences familiar with her iconic role as Gloria Stivic, and younger audiences discovering her talent